Yeah, so I want to talk about how to integrate Stripe into a software stack, and this is how we integrate it into DocRouter.AI. DocRouter.AI is a tool for document processing with language models, and the idea is we want people to self-onboard if possible. So once they log in, and actually Nate's account, so I'm kind of sneaking to his account to do this demo. The idea is to be able to either sign up uh, for a monthly plan, um, or sign up for enterprise, which is done outside of Stripe, or just initially start with free credits, right? And you can process a number of pages or a number of documents with free credits, and you can also ask me for more credits to get started, or you can just purchase credits a la carte. So I just want to share a little bit the experience of implementing this integration with Stripe. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to vibe code because the tools for vibe coding were not quite familiar with the Stripe APIs. And kind of the back thought of this is that if I can get it to work for DocRouter, then I can have a next product and a next product and a next product that shares the same infrastructure underneath and the same backend database. Just on top is going to be something else. And the Stripe integration would just work. So some of the things that were learned, and now this is applicable in general, like whatever project you do, if you want to do Stripe integration, it's not DocRouter specific, and that's what I want to talk about in this talk here. So I'll try to get as much as possible through these points here, and I don't think I have more than 10, 15 minutes, so I may not be able to get to it, but you can see the whole blog post if you go to DocRouter.AI, and if you go to the resources blog, it's going to be the top blog post there, so you can see the details and the link to the source code. So yeah, let's talk about the source code first, right? Because this is about coding. So the DocRouter has a FastAPI backend, and FastAPI is Python, and it's got a React front end. It's Next.js, but the bulk of the integration is in the Python backend. When you do Stripe integration, you can pick kind of what language you want to integrate with, and they've got REST APIs, they've got Python SDK, they've got TypeScript SDK, but for me, it's the Python SDK that I'm using. And just kind of a sneak preview of how this is done. There's basically all these APIs, all these Stripe APIs that you can call, like, Stripe subscription modify, for example, or Stripe subscription delete. And we can talk about which objects you can access to these APIs. But you see this quirk here where we have to wrap it with an async function. So why would I need to bother with this? Well, so this is a FastAPI implementation, and the product needs to scale, right? So FastAPI uses async, and if I was to combine async functions with blocking functions to Stripe, that would just not work properly, right? That would cause all sorts of weird problems. So the solution is to wrap the Stripe APIs in async, just because that API is not sophisticated enough to support async out of the box. But this is perfectly easy to do with Cursor or Cloud Code. You just say, I want an async API for this. It just does it. What it doesn't know how to do very well, it doesn't really know what's a subscription API, what's the difference between this and another version of the subscription API, and so on. All right, so this is the code, and there's going to be a pointer in the blog post to the code if you want to look in detail. And feel free, this is Apache license code. Feel free to read the whole project is Apache license. Right. Why use Stripe? Well, as a business, I don't have to deal with credit cards. I let Stripe deal with the credit cards. I just get some customer IDs and their emails, and I use their portal to see who's paying what. So that de-risks a lot of the finance aspect of things. How does Stripe handle payments? And this was difficult to figure out. It was documented by Stripe, but it's kind of very hard to understand exactly, and everybody uses it differently. So they support subscriptions, and it's kind of the vanilla old style, just pay $20 a month, and that's it type subscription. They support one-time charges, and I use that in DocRouter. You want to buy credits on a card, it's a one-time charge, and you get so many credits, right? They have these webhooks that call you back and say, oh, somebody new purchased credits, credit the account for it. And this is something that I haven't used, right? There's this move in Stripe to support meter charges. So the question was, use the Stripe meter charges or not use the Stripe meter charges? And I ended up on advice of some friends, not using the meter charges, implementing them into the platform. So why meter charges? Well, when you have LLM calls, you have these tokens that you use. Essentially, you need to meter those and need to mark it up a little bit so that you make a tiny profit, but not too much, right? So that's kind of need to make it work. And they have APIs to do this, but you can imagine these APIs, you need to call them all the time because the language model needs to be called all the time. You've got hundreds of calls in parallel, so it'd be a bit crazy to call that API. So instead, what we do is we meter internally in our database, and we just at the end accumulate and charge basically for the accumulated result. Yeah, so a bit more kind of building is a mix of business setup and engineering. Actually, that's why it's so difficult, because you also need to get the business right for it. And also you get different types of customers. Like as a startup, some of the customers are more like, oh, I want it free. And some of them are, no. They're enterprise, and if you don't charge enough, then you kind of leave money on the table. And if you enshrine it in your payment platform, you can easily make a mistake, and you need to kind of catch both ends of the spectrum. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So the way we're dealing with this is we have this notion of service processing units, SPUs, which is an idea borrowed from Databricks, which uses Databricks processing, DBUs, Databricks units. And then the idea is to map these on actual tangible things like tokens used or pages processed, and be transparent what an SPU means. So that's how we do this. And one more thing on the business side, which is actually something that I've learned, which was not obvious anywhere, is how do you approach pricing for an AI product? And this is a diagram from Stripe. And ideally, you want to be in this top right quadrant and have an outcome-based pricing model if you can. And I'll explain why DocRouter cannot do this, right? So outcome-based pricing would be if, for example, you service with AI customer calls, you would charge per successful processing that doesn't involve a human. If the AI needs to involve a human, you don't charge for that. And that aligns the interest between your business and the customer, right? But that works if you have a vertical solution. The reason it doesn't work for the DocRouter is that it's a data layer solution. So the DocRouter is actually a hybrid pricing model. So that's about as much I want to say about this. There's like books that explain this whole thing. So it's a really rich subject. There's a lot to be said. Maybe at least you have a starting point if you look at the blog post, how to look at it. Okay, let's also talk a bit mechanics. So the DocRouter uses MongoDB on the back end, and that was kind of an architecture choice. I know there's other relational databases. You can do like Supabase, you can do Postgres, you can do all these wonderful things. For me, MongoDB is very appropriate for the AI age because it's text-based, and I'm not so worried about the performance part. I can optimize the performance. If performance becomes an issue, I put a sidecar database to deal with the performance thing. So now the challenge is mix these Stripe objects that you have with a schema in MongoDB that needs to be matched, and that's why this was a bit complicated to implement. So right, so let's talk a bit about that. But anyway, when you start, what you need to get is the Stripe secret key for your account. You need also a secret for the webhook, so that when the webhook comes back, you can check that it's the correct webhook, is not somebody who's not supposed to call the webhook. And there's additionally, this is my implementation. There's this tag that I'm gonna say. This is my product tag, and I'm gonna explain why I use tags. But before I do, this is basically kind of the top level diagram of what's happening here. What's happening on the Stripe side and what's happening on the DocRouter side, or really any other product. So on the Stripe side, you have these objects. You add the products, And the product has multiple prices. And then the product has multiple prices because you've got this pricing. And these prices can be of multiple types. And these prices can be of multiple types. They can be recurring prices, which is this monthly subscription. They can be a one-time price, which is this, okay, I just want to split a la carte. They can be metered prices, which I'm not using, but I spent a lot of time figuring out that I don't need to use that. And then you have subscriptions. So you have customers and subscriptions, and a customer can have multiple subscriptions. So that's kind of the simplest I can think of the Stripe schema. When I haven't seen a diagram like this with Stripe, I think it'd be nice if they kind of simplified a bit their documentation. On the MongoDB side, in the DocRouter, you need to create some tables or some collections as a call in Mongo. So you need to have a record of the customers that needs to match one-to-one with the Stripe notion of customers. And this needs to be synced, right? Whenever you restart the system, you need to resync it, right? You need to keep track of the payments that you get for these a la carte credits. And then you need to keep track of usage, right? So when you call the LLM and you want to bump up the counters, you need to store that event somewhere. So you see the LLM call is going to bump this payment usage. There's a usage dashboard that says, what you've been using, and then you handle these webhooks. So the other trick here is that, we talked about the Stripe secret key, right? You absolutely need the Stripe secret key because that's how you identify yourself with Stripe. Well, products, prices, and so on, they all have their own secret keys. But the point is you don't want to use those secret keys. And many implementations the mistake of using that. Instead, what you want to do is create tags or metadata for inside the product and the prices, and just drive your software based off that metadata. You come up with a convention, say, what does this metadata mean? And then you just tie your stuff at the metadata. And then it becomes flexible because when you want to change a product or change a price, all it is you change metadata in Stripe, and you don't need to repackage your software, right? So that's kind of the slick tricks that I've learned, and I found really, really useful. And the blog is going to talk a bit more about these choices. So this is an example API to list prices. And then you get this dictionary of prices from the Python SDK. You can filter these prices by tag, right? So let's say I want to have a second product. So DocRouter is one product, it's fine, it's working. Now I want the second product that is completely different, but I want the same Stripe account. Well, I can, because the second product can have another metadata in there, and that's how I can dispatch between the two. You can parse these prices. Everything is dictionary based. So essentially, you try it hands-on, you see what you get back, you poke around a little bit. That's kind of how you do this. This section explains this async trick that I've explained that you need to do. Okay, so another trick here is you don't want to implement the payment portal in your software. You want to use the Stripe payment portal. So you want to redirect the customer to the Stripe payment portal and have them enter the credit card there. And they have one notion of checkout portal and a different one for billing portal, right? So checkout portal is for these a la carte credits. The billing portal is for the subscriptions. It took a while to figure out. I think it took me like a couple of weeks just to understand the difference between these two. But it's kind of usual screen that you get when you do it. Webhooks we talked about. And then the MongoDB schema. And I won't go into detail here because I've shown the diagram, but you have more detail here. You've got the source code if you want to look at it. This is how you track CPU usage. And one last thing, I think, actually two more things I want to mention before I'm done. Stripe has this great notion of a sandbox. So when you do your development, you don't need to try live credit card data. You just go in the sandbox and just make it perfect, and then you can use a key for the sandbox and a key for the production. And that was great. And the other thing I want to mention is that my friend Randy Carlton really helped kind of conceptualizing this on the business side. And I put a link to his schedule here. If people want to talk about pricing for their startup, he's a great resource. And he offered to help people from AI Tinkerer. So I just wanted to have the link here. And that's my presentation. Thank you.